One of the most challenging things when Darren and I talk about wheat production on our show is that harvest has already occurred in some areas of the United States, and then there's some other wheat that just got planted a couple, 3 weeks ago. So we've got a vast difference in the stages of growth, but today we're going to focus on heading in wheat.
Well, that's the challenging thing with wheat, Brian, is there's wheat getting harvested almost every month of the year somewhere around the world. So it's hard to outguess the markets because there's always a new supply of wheat coming around. Well, if you want to have a good supply of wheat coming from your farm, you've got to protect that wheat from disease throughout the season. Things like head scab coming right at the end of the year after you've invested all this money into your crop are pretty frustrating. So when you think about how much money that it could potentially cost you to protect your crop from head scab, it's really not that big a deal. I mean, it's not that big an expense that you say, well, I can't afford to protect my crop from head scab.
But here's the whole thing, Darren. You're focusing on the expense side, and I don't like to look at it that way. I always choose to look at these things as, is this an investment? Is this a good investment? And in both cases, I'd say absolutely. But on my farm, it might be a little bit different on your farm. If I'm going for 90 bushel wheat, that's a little different than if you're going for 30. But here's the whole thing. When it comes to fungicide applications, you need to make sure you're spraying before you have major disease problems. And that's really frustrating because if you're used to scouting for weeds, you're used to scouting for bugs, you wait until you hit the economic threshold, then you go ahead and spray. Not too tough.
You see the problem first, then you go correct it. And when it comes to protecting your wheat crop from disease, you've got to spray before there's a problem. Otherwise, once there is a problem, there's really no fixing it. Okay. Once that crop is sick, it's too late.
Okay, so the main problems we have at that heading stage, Darren already mentioned the fusarium head blight, or head scab as we call it. But the other thing that you may have is rust at that point, and that's still on the leaves, but you can get protection from a heading application of fungicide. And it's not just common rust, we're talking about stripe rust as well. Stripe rust has really moved quickly all around the United States in the last couple of years, and it's a bad one. I mean, it might take 10, 20, 30% of your wheat yield, so you got to make sure you're controlling that.
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to any of these fungicides, they all have some great claims that they make. Oh, we move around in the plant a little more than our competitor does. The reality is none of them move around in the plant very much at all. So if you want to protect a certain portion of that plant, you have to spray when that portion's out. Like the flag leaf, for example. We have a lot of guys that say, well, you know, maybe I should spray at flag leaf and then I won't spray at heading. I want to make a choice between the two. Well, the problem is if you wait until that head is out, if you already have disease in the flag leaf, you've got a problem. Or if you spray when the flag leaf's out but the head hasn't emerged yet, well, you can protect that flag leaf just fine, but you can't protect the head at all. So you may have to make two different applications if you're in an area that has conditions just ripe for disease.
Yeah, so just yesterday, for example, Darren and I were talking to a farmer who said, yeah, I think I missed the window because I sprayed, and about 3 days later, the head came out. And I said, well, you didn't protect that head hardly at all. I mean, yes, you controlled probably your rust, your stripe rust, that kind of thing, but as far as head scab, you really did nothing.
Well, and who knows? He may not have had to do anything.
Right.
You know, it all depends on what the weather conditions are. Let's say that we get warm and dry and there's virtually no disease traveling around in the area. Hey, you might make it without putting on a head scab application at all.
Okay, let's talk specifically about fungicides here. One of the most important things you need to know is once you get past that flag leaf stage, you absolutely cannot use any fungicide that contains a strobel urine. So that would be things like Headline, Quadris, Avito as straight products, but there are combination products that contain strobel urines as well. For example, Twinline, Stratego, and Quilt. You can't use any of those products once you're past the flag leaf stage in wheat. Otherwise, you have a good chance to increase your DON levels, your toxin levels in the wheat.
That's fine, Brian. There's still plenty of other products to choose from, and actually there's some really good products that do a nice job protecting you from head scab and also from the rust. You think about an old product like Folicure or the generic version Aureus. I guess there's several generics out there. When you look at Folicure, it used to be really expensive. I remember guys saying, wow, you know, Folicure, that's like 15 bucks an acre. I don't know if I want to do that. You know, when wheat's $3 a bushel, now things have completely changed, and you can spray a full rate of a generic Folicure type product for just a few bucks an acre.
Well, not just a few, it's $2 an acre for the full 4-ounce rate. $2, that's it. So in other words, let's say you're in a drier area of the country and you say, I don't know how much head scab I'm gonna have, I don't know how much rust I'm gonna have. It's $2 an acre. Okay, the odds of a payback are really good. But let's keep in mind, this is not the best product on scab. It's really good on rust. It's okay on scab, but the best,
let's just
that's
say,
not the best on
that,
scab.
let's just say you've got 30 bushel potential. And you say, I can't afford to make a huge investment out here, but $2 an acre, I can probably afford $2 an acre.
Okay, again though, I'm gonna stop you because it's not afford, it's how good is my return on investment going to be in a 30 bushel crop with $12 or $13 expense versus a $2 expense. Okay, so I think that $2 is going to give me a very good return on investment.
You can look at it however you want to look at it. I look at it as, well, okay, I've got a potential of maybe another 10 bushels that I'm going to protect. And I can afford to take a chance of spending X dollars, or I can say, well, my potential return is this.
All right.
Either way, it's the same thing.
Okay, but here's the thing. Let's get to the better products on scab. That would be Prosaro and Caramba. Now, Prosaro is a combination of the old Folicure together with Proline. So it's actually got that old Folicure in there, but Proline is a much better product on scab. So again, Prosaro is the combination product. That's probably the one you would want to use. Otherwise, BASF has an alternative. That's called Caramba, and that's a straight product. And all of those chemistries, they are triazoles, okay? Nothing contains strobilurin again. Just triazoles, that's what you need to use at heading.
Okay, here's one challenge that came up this year. Stripe rust in many areas hit very early in the season. And guys were looking for cheap options of protection against stripe rust. Well, you know, for $2 an acre, you could spray generic Folicure. So some guys pulled the trigger with generic Folicure early in the season, and unfortunately you can only spray that one time per year. So now you've already sprayed it. Now what can you do at heading?
Yeah, well then you have to switch to Caramba or that's it.
That's
yeah,
it,
you have no other
has
choice.
Some Folicure in it.
Right.
That's the whole point. You know,
well, BASF should be happy at least.
Well, here's the thing. As we talk about Folicure or Aureus, they're pretty good at protecting against rust. There's other things that are fine. I mean, you can use those products like a twin line or a quilt.
Early in the season, not at heading. Okay, we're focused on heading here. And the big thing when it comes to heading applications is you've got to be spraying at the right time. It's not just when the head comes out. It's not when it's completely flowered. The ideal timing you're looking for to get both control on scab and control on rust is about that 10 to 15% flowering. So you want to see just a few flowers. Now, that basically means you probably have 3 days to spray. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So you have to have a good relationship with whoever's going to fly that on for you, or you're going to need to have tram lines out in your field so you can spray it with a ground rig.
Well, either way, once you get to heading and you start flowering a little bit, your plant is very susceptible to disease outbreaks. And again, with wheat, you have to protect plant parts that are out. So you can't protect that head until that head is out, and actually we'd like to see it start flowering a little bit to get the most protection possible.
Well, those are the steps you need to take to protect your wheat crop, but an important step to protect any crop is to control weeds. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?